Let's talk about studying for the CCNA now. How would I do it? The way that I recommend it and the way that I do it in my classroom at Madison College is our video training supplements our education. So the video training is nice because my intention is to give you all of the information you need in a way that makes it understandable so that you can go study and understand the material in the real world, which means that we need some other stuff to study. I highly recommend getting a study guide or book. I really like Todd Lamel's content. I've been using his stuff for years to train my students in the classroom. The video training is a relatively new educational feature in the world. These study guides have been around for a while, and I really appreciate Todd Lamel's work. There's also the Cisco networking academies around the world. You can check on Cisco's website to find out if there's a networking academy near you. At Madison College, we are a networking academy, and we offer our networking academy Cisco training classes for credit towards an associate's degree. If you're interested in getting an associate's degree in this as well, check your local area for institutions that are a Cisco networking academy that can offer this content to you. Next is a lab. Now, labs are ridiculously important in learning the CCNA. You're really going to need some hands-on experience to be very successful at the CCNA. Where can you get some lab hardware? I got lab hardware off of eBay. You might find lab hardware in a classroom. So if you go take a class, you're going to have some lab hardware to use. There's virtual equipment you can use. GNS3 is a freely available software package that you can download and you can install routers on. There's also Cisco's VIRL. It's a virtual networking environment that you can use to study for the CCNA. Both of these have limitations. They both have the ability to give you great experience on the command line, but what they don't do is give you experience on how to connect cables and how to actually hook up the hardware in a real setting. GNS3 actually doesn't even have a good switch emulator yet. So although these two are very valuable resources for studying, my personal preference is to get some real hardware to work on. Let's take a look at the lab equipment that I'm using. We have routers and switches and some PCs. What I'm using in my lab are 3 Cisco 1841 routers. These are older routers and are readily available. The software I'm running on them is iOS version 12.4-15.T8. It also has the feature set of advanced services. You can kind of see all of this stuff encoded in this file name. When we get to the configuration of the router video, I go through exactly what all those pieces mean. For the time being, just know that I have 3 1841 routers running that version of the software. Additionally, on those 1841 routers, I have 2 serial interfaces that I have plugged in. When you look at kits for these on eBay, most of the CCNA kits will have these serial interfaces already installed in them. I'm also using 2 Cisco Catalyst 2960 switches. This time I'm using the LAN-based K9 version here, and it's 15.0-2. I also have 1 Cisco Catalyst 3560 switch. This is a layer 3 switch, and I'm also running version 15.0-2 of the software there. When we do get to that router configuration course, not only do I explain how the file names work, I also show you how to upgrade and swap out each of the internetworking operating systems so that you can have whatever version you need and is most functional on your device. Last, there are some optional gear here as well. 2 Cisco Catalyst 3750 switches, and we're going to be using these for switch stacking demonstrations. You don't necessarily need these. The switch stacking, I think you can get through without actually touching it because it's going to be a relatively small part of the CCNA. So you need to understand how they operate and what happens when you connect those switches together via a stack. But I don't necessarily recommend spending the money on getting these 2 switches because the 3750 switches are a little more expensive than the other pieces of equipment, and you just won't get the utility out of them that you will with the other gear. Build a lab at work if possible, right? Don't spend any money if you don't have to. There's no need to have all this gear at home. It's cool. It looks funky. It can impress or scare your friends and family. But ultimately, if you don't have to purchase the gear, don't. So build a lab at work if possible. I know in my previous employment, there was always used equipment laying around that was great for studying for the CCNA, but maybe didn't work so much in an enterprise network. So go find that equipment and collect it. Make sure you get permission to use this. Just don't go steal equipment from your company and set it up at home. Make sure you get permission to use this. Set up a lab at work if you can. Let other people share it. If that's not possible, check out eBay. In 2016, I just checked eBay, and for $300, you can get the kit that I'm using to study for this exam. All right, $300 will get you a kit to study for the exam. I think that's a relatively reasonable price. GNS3 is a virtual lab. It's not really recommended for noobs, people who are new to networking. I don't recommend this for them, mainly because there's no ability to take a physical cable and plug it into the device and see how to configure it. My students at Madison College, when they are studying for exams, they will oftentimes try to use GNS3 or software similar to that Cisco offers, and they will study for all of their hands-on exams using those virtualized software. And when they show up to the exam, they cannot plug the cable into the device to put a base configuration on it. The last thing that I would want for you watching this video is to show up to an interview with a CCNA in your hand, excited to start a career in networking, show up to the job, and not be able to plug the cable into the device. So I don't recommend using these virtual labs unless you have extensive experience plugging cables into equipment.